So today we're going to be looking at comparing and ordering rational numbers. We've already talked about what rational numbers are, what irrational numbers are, all of that. Now we're going to look at putting it all together. But first we have the warm-up, and it's asking you to find the square root. It says if it is not a perfect square. Remember, you need to know that list of perfect squares. Your perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 144. And that is a list that you're going to need to know. So if it's not a perfect square, it does ask you to just plug it into the calculator. So the square root of 36, 36 is a perfect square. So my answer is going to be 6. 33 is not a perfect square, so you type the square root of 33 in the calculator, and you should. So like I said at the beginning, we're going to be comparing and ordering rational numbers today. How do we classify them? How do we put them in order? What's the easiest way to figure all this stuff out? So that's kind of where we're going today. Comparing rational and irrational numbers. There are some symbols that we're going to use to help us do some comparisons. There are 5 symbols. The first symbol is your straight up greater than. Obviously the opposite of greater than is less than. We can also compare things using the equal sign, equal to. We also have greater than or equal to. And the opposite of greater than and equal to. And the opposite of greater than is less than and equal to. These two on the bottom, right here, we're not going to be using them very much. We're really going to be focusing on these top 3, greater than, less than, and equal to. So it looks like my typing kind of got mixed up a little bit, but we can figure it out. I want to know which value is greater, 7.74596 or the square root of 59. The easiest way to do any sort of comparison today with anything that we're working with is going to be to make everything into decimals. So I'm going to do the square root of 59 first in the calculator, and I get 7.681145, and it keeps going. I have enough numbers now to be able to compare. I don't need to write any more. So I'm looking at the 2. I want to know which one's bigger. Well, this first one is 7.7, and this one is 7.6. Don't go rounding. Don't say that the 8 in the second one could bump that up to a 7 and so on and so forth. We're looking at the exact values. And when we focus just on the exact values, we get the 7.74596 being the greater of the 2. The second problem down here, this is negative square root of 7. And the negative square root of 7 in the calculator is negative 2.6457 ... And I'm comparing it to negative 3.5. Remember how negatives work. The smaller the negative, the bigger the value. So the square root, the negative square root of 7 is actually the larger of the 2. It has a greater value than the negative 3.5. Okay? Think money. I'd rather owe someone negative $2.64 than have to owe them $3.50. If you can kind of think about it that way. So now I want you to try these 4 on your own. Hopefully you can kind of see how everything lays out. Try it on your own, then come back. We'll go over it and go on from there. So now that you've had a chance to try it on your own, square root of 2 gives me 1.414, so the 1.7 is larger. Pi, we know that that is 3.14159. 28 over 9 in the calculator gives me 3.11, and pi ends up being bigger. Pi again, 3.14159. Square root of 7 is 2.645, so pi again ends up being bigger. 3.2 square root of 10, square root of 10 is 3.16. 3.2 is larger. So in this slide, we're going to work on ordering rational numbers. We're going to put these things in order from least to greatest. And just like when we were working on comparing, we want to make everything decimals. Okay, so everything decimals. So you're going to need your calculator because you're certainly not going to want to do this without. 28% into a decimal, if you can't do it in your head, you just divide by 100. So 28 divided by 100 is 0.28. The negative 2.5 is good to go. 2 over 7 divided as a decimal is 0.29. And the negative square root of 9, 9 is a perfect square, so negative 3. I'm putting these in order from the least value to the highest value. You must write them back in the original format. So negative 3 has my lowest value, and it matches with the negative square root of 9. So I have to write the negative square root of 9 in my answer. Once I've used one, I go ahead and I cross it out. Next is going to be the negative 2.5. Get rid of both of my negatives. And now I'm looking at the decimals. When I think decimals, I think money. 28 cents, which is the 28%, is smaller than the 2 over 7 or the 2.9 as a decimal. So looking at the bottom one again, I'm going to make everything into decimals. So pi is 3.1415. 3 1/3. The 3 goes before the decimal point. Do the 1/3 in the calculator and you get 3 repeating. Square root of 14 is 3.74. So I'm going to put these in order from least to greatest. They're actually already in order from least to greatest. So first comes pi, and then 3 1/3, and then the square root of 14. 4 for you to go ahead and try on your own, and then I'll come back and give you how it would work out as a list from least to greatest. Make sure you do watch where those commas are to kind of help you along. In number 1, the negative 0.8 is the smallest, and the negative 1/9, square root of 5, and 3.5. For 2, 27%, the square root of 2, 2.75, and then 2 7/9 is the largest. Number 3, 32 2/3% is my smallest, and then 7 over 3, square root of 6, and pi is actually the largest value this time. Number 4, this time pi is the smallest value, square root of 11, the 3.74, 1657. Now we're going to estimate the value of an expression. With estimating, it means we're going to round. And we're going to round to the tens place. Remember that the tens place is one number past the decimal point. And all you're going to do with these is plug them into your calculator. So this is pi squared. So find the pi button on your calculator. We should all know how to square things. And when we round it correctly, we're going to get 9.9. This is actually 2 times the square root of 7. Wait, no, I phrased that wrong. That's not right. It is... You're just going to put it in as 2 square root 7. Don't put the multiplication sign in between them. Okay. Just put it in as 2 root 7. It does mean multiplication, but the calculator recognizes it this way, and that way it'll avoid any sort of confusion. And you end up getting 5.3. Then we go on to the next slide. 3 of these for you to try on your own. Basically, you're just plugging them into the calculator. The goal here is, can you round correctly, basically? So pi over 2 should round to 1.6. 5 root 15 is 19.4 rounded correctly, and 3 square root 8 is going to give me 8.5. Here again, we're just going to plug into the calculator. It's all about, can you work with the calculator? Can you figure out how these things are supposed to be plugged in together, all of that? So in the calculator, you're going to do the square root symbol. You're going to get the parentheses. You're going to type the 43 in, and you have to close the parentheses. Subtraction sign, 7, and then you guys have an ABC key, which will get you a fraction, and that's when you put 11. Put all that in, hit equals, and you should get 5.9. Put it in as one complete problem. Don't do the square root of 43 and get that answer. Don't do 7 over 11 and get that answer and then try to subtract, because you're going to end up with rounding errors. Better to just put it in as one large problem. So on the second one, we're going to do the square root of 78 in the calculator. Close the parenthesis. Use your division sign, which will put a slash on your screen, and then type in 4. And you're going to get 2.2 when you round it off. 3 of these for you to try. When you come back, we'll go ahead and go over the answers. First one, when you plug it in, you should get 9.1. Second one's a little tricky because you end up with 6.98 ... The 8 will actually round the 9 to a 10, which is going to estimate this really at 7. And then the last one is 1.9. So that's it for comparing and ordering rational and irrational numbers. Your homework tonight is in your book, page 93, 1 through 4, 5 through 9, and 10 through 11. If you don't have your book with you at home, I would definitely go to the book website, connected@mcgrawhill.com. There's a link from my webpage itself that should be able to take you there, and you can get the problems right from the website then.